Hey, Judge, how are you?
Good afternoon, Madam President. I didn't realize that I was on until I looked there. I apologize. How's everyone? Good afternoon.
Oh, wonderful.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Walters, how are you?
Good. I got another very important meeting that I may have to leave this meeting and go to that one.
Okay.
But I'll be on. She was supposed to call at 11, but you know it's a little after 11 now, and I'm still waiting on that return call. So whenever she calls, I'll probably have to leave your meeting and go to that one. Not that you're not the most important person in my life.
I was waiting for that because, I don't know how we're supposed to feel about that now.
Okay, but hello to everybody, and
Hello, Mr. Walters.
just let the judge know that I am on this meeting.
Okay.
And I noticed there's a meeting tonight. I'm gonna try to be on that also.
No, tomorrow, you mean? From us?
No, there's one that says tonight, and then there's one that says tomorrow night.
If it's ours, it's tomorrow.
They say the children is tomorrow.
Yes.
But there was another one. I forgot what it is, but it was tonight. So if it's not you, then I'm not gonna worry about it.
Okay. Yeah. No, it's not me.
Okay, then I would be on the one tomorrow night.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. I'll be on silent.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. I believe we have quorum. We'll get started. Certainly want to welcome you all again to our August 11th, 2021 Circuit Advisory Board meeting. I am the chair, and we are we do have a new member that we will have introduce himself after we have gone over our norms. So let us start with self-introductions of our board members.
Good afternoon. I'm Alona Holmes, representing the NAACP, Fort Lauderdale branch.
Gordon Weeks, Public Defender.
I'm Colonel David Holmes, representing the Broward County Sheriff's Office.
I'm Valerie Wanza, representing the Superintendent of Schools.
Ella Phillips of DJJ Advisory Board.
Good afternoon, everyone. John James with the Public Defender's Office.
Mr. Walters. And I see also Geis. Victor London.
Victor London, representing Fort Lauderdale Police Department.
Geis.
Now I got it. Elder Gates Faith Community.
All right, thank you, sir.
All right, thank you.
Okay. And I believe from DJJ, we have some folk as well.
Johnny Sanders, DJJ Prevention.
Thank you, sir.
Good afternoon, Cassandra Evans, Chief Probation Officer.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Let's be reminded of our norms. Your cell phones on silent or vibrate. Raise your hand if you're wishing to speak. Excuse me. Maximum of 3 minutes per person. Respect all opinions and viewpoints, and please address the board members respectfully. We are start out, as you all know, Judge Williams decided that he would no longer serve on the board, and we do have an appointment from our chief judge. So, Judge, if you will introduce yourself for the rest of the members, please.
Sure. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Carlos Rabola. I'm a circuit court judge, and as Madam Chair indicated, I was asked by Judge Williams and then Judge Tudor to see if I wanted to fill in, and absolutely. So here I am.
Thank you. Alrighty, and so we are going to start with, I don't see, do y'all see anyone? I don't see anyone from the state attorney's office here. And so we wanted to start off with the juvenile criminal record expungement. And so we had our monthly Save Our Children town hall meeting. One of the things that we discussed with the guest, Aramis Ayala, who was Florida's first Black state attorney, was juvenile expungement. And she went on to say that she didn't really know a whole lot about, didn't realize what was happening with juveniles once they had been arrested, and whether they were offered juvenile civil citation and or diversion, and then to go on to have their record expunged. And it didn't really come on really to the forefront until at nearly the end of her term in office there, because she just did the one. And so once that happened, she then started a very robust program that when the children were entered into or were given and accepted juvenile diversion, that automatically they would then be told about juvenile expunction, and they would be given, once upon successful completion, they would be given the paperwork so that then they could move forward with their administrative expunction or diversion expunction piece. And so I wanted to find out from the state attorney's office, and there is a Gloria on here. Is that the Gloria from the state attorney's office? Let's see. Is there someone from the state attorney's office on?
Yes, can you hear me, Madam Chair?
I think I just transferred the right person. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Oh,
All right.
Hi, good afternoon. Sorry, I was on earlier. I could see all of you, but I had a glitch on this end.
Okay. Okay, so we wanted to find out what we're doing here in Broward for administrative expunctions. I know that prior there were to this administration, there was an effort to make sure that juveniles knew about the administrative expunction, and that they were helped to complete the paperwork. There were workshops. I'm not so sure if it was part of the bigger workshops that your office did. But at one time, I know that there were juvenile workshops geared specifically toward those children who had successfully completed. So if you will share with us where you are now, we'd be greatly appreciative.
Okay, well, I've had this question before. I think the concern is, I don't know where the camera is on this thing, so my apologies. I'll have to call IT back. The reason why there hasn't been any workshops is obvious because of the pandemic. So I don't know that we're coming out of it enough that our office would feel comfortable trying to hold those workshops again, or even that anybody would agree that this would be the time to do it. But certainly we're going to continue to do them as soon as would be feasible. So that's not off the table. And I will be speaking with the state attorney about that, but I just don't know that that's going to happen right now since everybody's sort of pulling back because of the numbers in Broward.
Well, one of the thing, and I think it was, Judge Holmes helped me, I think it was the no-go or no-no had this cute little name for it. And what it consisted of was because we're still doing diversion. What it consisted of, once a child successfully completed the paperwork that would need to complete the expungement that they used to go and get would be given to that student without there being a big crowd or anything like that. So what would prevent you all from doing that and saying, okay, this is what you're entitled to? I think I read somewhere that you have like a year, and then you would have those children would have their paperwork and ready and the application done. So it'd just be a matter of them signing and dropping it in the mail. So is there something that prevents you all from doing that?
So are you indicating that you've heard that we're not doing that? Because that is part of diversion. So I don't have I've not heard that that's not happening. Somebody suggesting that it's not been happening?
Are you saying that we may be saying two different things. In addition to saying that this is you remember when Maria was there, she was a chief. They had the workshops, and only thing that happened at the workshop is you'd have a one-stop shop. And so you would have all of the paperwork signed by your office, the prints by law enforcement, that sort of thing, would be all in one folder. And it showed the family how to sign and where to put their information, and it was just as a matter of that. So I'm saying, are you saying that when children successfully complete diversion in Broward and they qualify, that packet is ready? You sign your paperwork, you've got the no process piece, you've got the application completed, they just need to sign it and mail it? Are you doing that?
No, I don't know that we've ever done that. My understanding is that they're given the information to pursue it, but I would have to get with Mr. Alsbury. I don't know that we ever actually completed the packet through a diversion provider, but
No, not a provider. It was done through your office, but doesn't have to be. I can tell you that for every one of those children, there were a lot more than they were now. It was done by the state attorney's office. And so when they did go to the one space there, all that was already done, and all it was a matter of them signing and showing them how to complete their paperwork, and it was very simple. It was streamlined by the end, by the time you all stopped doing it. So I was sharing that at the state attorney's office in Orange. They give that packet to the student or the child upon successful completion, and then they can then move that whole space.
I will definitely get with Mr. Alsbury on that, find out if, when, how we've done it, and why we're not doing it.
And I was on, since we were talking about it, I saw that there are several different types of juvenile expunction options. I saw the administrative, which we were just talking about. Of course, there is a automatic that's not really automatic that Gordon Weeks explained last. I see the statute talks of a court-ordered expungement, diversion program expungement, human traffic victim expungement. And so is there something that you all do with those things as well? I mean, that the human trafficking one, really, human trafficking victim expungement really piqued my interest. That would be huge, I believe, here in Broward, based on the numbers I've seen.
I think those are we're sort of addressing that now because we are in the process of completing a human trafficking diversion program specifically. And so that is certainly on the table and something that we're all I'm open to and preparing for.
So as it stands now, we just don't know about that. And I just
Doesn't
saw
matter because I have no indication that I have any juveniles right now who need to have that happen. So it's not like we're behind anything. Nobody's been brought to my attention that's not getting the opportunity, but I certainly will create the opportunity to be sure it's in place if and when it's needed.
If you are not speaking, if you could mute, that would be great for the speakers there. For Gordon and Judge, who are working the subcommittee, can this be added to go on as your next topic there, Mr. Weeks?
Madam Chair, I am hearing the response from the state, and I'm going to assist as we can. And we're going to create a process in our office for those individuals that we represent to get them a copy. And I'm going to tell you exactly what we're going to do for them. So maybe we can mimic what the state will do. I think it's important that at the disposition of a child that has completed diversion, that they get a copy of their face sheet, a copy of the probable cause affidavit that's involving that particular encounter, a copy of the disposition memorializing that it been properly resolved with the no process, and a copy of the packet from FDLE that will instruct them how to pursue the diversion. The problem that we have is the state attorney has to certify that portion of it, but hopefully if we have those available to them in court, and we take some time to explain it to the parents and everybody there, that the state attorney will either create some portion that's them to sign off on it in court or create some other step thereafter quickly so they can get it signed off. I was just talking to John, and John reminded me that you may have to also get fingerprints certified to show that it's a child. And if that is the case, I'm going to ask Judge Robolo and Judge Williams and the other juvenile judges to assist us if they are present in court and they have that fingerprint card to allow us to use the in-court bills to get them to certify that fingerprint card. So at least when they walk out of court, they'll have all of the information in their hands that they can then go forward and complete the last step of the process, which is sending the $75 off the FDLA. So we're talking about that process. John's going to get that packet together. When we have that packet together, we'll share it, and we'll see where we go from there.
Who does the fingerprinting at the courthouse? I know that used to be one of the sites. Is that Fort Lauderdale? Is it BSO or?
Technically, it's BSO has the responsibility to fingerprint, but it is different because the judges order fingerprinting as a portion of the disposition of the case. This fingerprinting will be outside of that. That's why I'm going to ask the judges for their assistance to allow, and we'd also have to have the sheriff's office for their assistance to allow the sheriff's office to conduct a second fingerprinting for purposes of those packets as necessary. I don't think that they will have to be fingerprinted at the state no process the case. So we're going to just need some indulgence from the court and some indulgence from the in-court deputies to assist us with those fingerprints if necessary.
Judge Robolo, any thoughts? You're muted, sir.
I don't see any problem with me and the juvenile delinquency judges assisting in getting a set of fingerprints for juveniles that have completed a diversion program so that they can get their application going as soon as possible. I don't foresee, that's not a problem with the judiciary.
Thank you.
Having
Colonel
said
Holmes?
that, Madam Chair, bear in mind that usually it's BSO that takes the prints, so they have to be on board too.
I'm
And we'll
going
have-
right there next as soon as you're done, Judge.
Yes, I see no problems with that. We already have bailiffs and deputies that normally do the fingerprinting. The command staff down there will be on board from the beginning. So I don't foresee any issues at all. If there are any issues, just let me know. I'll make a phone call down there to the captain. Captain Tiango is very cooperative, and he'll make sure that everything be done expeditiously.
Thank you. And I believe, Ms. Evans, you said you all are still meeting, the Diversion Coalition still meets? Is that monthly?
Yes, ma'am. It's monthly.
Okay. And what's that, when do y'all meet? And is
It's
it
not-
virtual?
It's not led under our auspices, but it is virtual. And I want to say it's the third Tuesdays, but I could be mistaken. I don't have the frequency there. But it
Is
is
it-
a virtual meeting.
Is it still led by the State Attorney's Office?
It was co-chaired by, I believe, Children's Services Council and a representative from PACE. They kind of rotate who chair and co-chair.
Okay. All right, so if you all can figure out that whole piece. I'm not sure what they share with them or what the next steps, or if they're doing it, attempting to do it on their own, but it would be good to find out. Judge Holmes?
Would it be possible to get some statistics on the number of expungements and sealings that are done for juveniles on a monthly basis? And that way we can see where we are in the scheme of things.
Ms. Evans, do y'all have that? Or is that a strictly FDLE thing?
I will ask if there's a way to pull that out of our system. That's done at a different level, but I'll ask that question, Madam Chair and Judge Holmes.
Thank you.
Okay, and if, Judge, if you all will, on the subcommittee could work on those different types. And I just did a search and it pulled up the Florida statute, and those are the different options for juveniles that we want to make sure that folk know.
Madam Chair, what I'll do
Yes.
is, with your permission, I'll put together a chart because I did a cursory review and some of the information is not correct with regard to the statute as it currently. So I'll put together a chart for the subcommittee. So when we finally, if we meet, everybody will know what statutes cover what, how much, if it's a judge thing, administrative, whatever is needed, I'll pull together all the types of expungements, and then we can disseminate it for the entire board.
Okay, that'll be awesome. Thank you. Okay. Any questions regarding juvenile criminal record expungement? Yes, Judge.
Madam
You got to
Chair,
change your name. You're killing me.
Judge Rabola.
Judge Williams.
Little known fact, Judge Williams and I were trial partners in 1991. I tell that to everybody, and I say, well, the only thing that does is that makes us old. But I don't mean to be a downer, but I think you're going to be disappointed. Judge Holmes brought up a good suggestion, a good idea. I think you're going to be disappointed in the numbers of expungement of juveniles, judging by how many I've signed off on, and I've been in delinquency now for, I believe, 7 or 8 years. I think the number is going to be, sadly, they're going to be very, very low. Mr. Weeks, you can, disagree with me or agree with me. I don't know. What do you think?
Judge Robola, can you wave your hands? I know your sensors, when you sit still, your lights go off and you're sitting in the dark. So if you just act like you're in a sanctified church, that way we can keep seeing you.
Okay.
Yeah, Madam Chair,
Yes.
I hear the conversation and I also agree with Judge Robolo. I've asked that we pull those numbers from FDLE. We're going to pull a few different numbers. You know, if they're capable of getting to this in a timely fashion, we'll share it with the committee. We're going to ask how many juveniles have received an expunction pursuant to the diversion for the state of Florida, and then we'll see if they'll break it down for Broward County. And we'll also ask how many juveniles have received any other form of expunction for Broward County and for the state of Florida. And we'll share that number when we get it. Just give us some time because FDLE is very slow.
Yes, I understand. That's fine. We just, now that I'm told the numbers have started to go back up, we want to make sure that the young people get the information and the opportunity, and we allow them, give them the resources in order to get it done for those that choose to. Okay. The state attorney's policy on arresting youth 12 and under, the MOU, I know that the law passed and the statute spoke to 7 and under. Where are we on the law enforcement agencies signing an agreement, and are we have we been in contact with them? I guess that would be, Gloria, would be you.
Harold and I had further meetings with Mr. Weissman and Mr. Dunkel from Coral Springs, who also represent the police chiefs. We are finalizing the MOU again in order to make sure that it includes exactly the way that I want it to be translated to the law enforcement officers in the trenches. And then Harold and I anticipating meeting with each agency that has not already been a part of what the MOU is or hasn't maybe necessarily completely signed off on it, to make sure that each agency is on board with educating the officers on the streets about what the expectations are from the state attorney's office. But
So
go ahead.
And there's not been another change
Another change in terms of what?
of the MOU, the one that was sent to us. There's been some additional changes.
There's still, I believe Mr. Weissman was going to do the last draft of it, and I don't know if Harold received that yet. So no last drafts that would have changed from the last time. I guess you all might have seen one. I'm assuming Mr. Pryor submitted that to you all. I wasn't at the last meeting.
And Mr. Weissman, as in Fort Lauderdale?
Yes.
Now, thank you, but
there's no draft to present because we haven't finalized it. Once it's finalized, then you can all, if you want to see it, you can see it.
Well, of course we'd want to see it, but we were told that it was done. I didn't know you guys were redoing it again, but
not really redoing it. We were adding language to make sure. Trying to think now what we wanted to. Well, actually, Ms. Evans was on the last meeting with us, Chief. She's now right. She was trying to keep herself from being noticed there. Chief Evans was on that last meeting, and she actually brought up a lot of good points in terms of procedurally how some of this will work for both DJJ law and law enforcement's purposes. And so with those suggestions and discussion that we had about it, Mr. Weissman, and I believe she could correct me, I think it's Mr. Dunkel, we're going back to the drafting table to make sure that it included some of those procedural things for DJJ's purposes and law enforcement's purposes. So all of it was in a positive direction of making it even easier for everybody to understand and put into practice once it is completely finalized. And Chief Evans, if she has a different perspective on that, she can also give you some input, because like I said, she was at the table with us.
Okay, Major London, the last time we talked, is this the agreement that you all had and we're prepared to sign on that day?
As of 15 minutes before we started this Zoom call, I spoke to Brad Weissman, and his instructions were that he was waiting for the state attorney to finalize updates and disseminate it out. Brad's not working on anything here.
Okay, so where's Fort Lauderdale? Oh, you're on hold again and waiting for Larry to come, or, because I didn't think that's what we were doing last month. But so I'll listen to the video again.
Yeah, so last month, we were supposed to have an MOU from the state attorney that was going to be executed with our agency. Apparently, there were additional changes, according to Brad Weissman, that was supposed to be made at the state attorney's office, and he's awaiting for those changes to be disseminated. And that was 15 minutes before I got on the Zoom call with you.
Okay. Colonel Holmes, where is BSO now? Have you all?
BSO, we've gotten that information out. We've signed the MOU. We're good to go. There's no issues, no concerns on our part. Matter of fact, information has already been disseminated to our frontline deputies. So they're all on board with it, and they're required to follow our protocols when it comes to those arrests. I think we jumped out in front early on, and we kind of separated ourselves from the Chiefs of Police Association to make sure that we got it done right away. And I think that some of the other agencies had some concerns with some language or whatever, but we were on board from the beginning and we got it out there right away.
Okay, so as it stands, it's still for Broward Sheriff's Office is on board. The rest of them are waiting for something to happen.
Madam Chair, if I may.
Hang on, Gloria, hold on, okay? Ms. Evans,
Yes.
you had your hand up earlier.
Yes, I wanted to add on to the presentation by the state attorney's office in the original question that you asked. And so I think what it is, we're in iteration number 2 of the MOU. So we originally started off earlier in the year, maybe spring, with 12-year-olders and younger, the phone call to the state attorney's office. Both our office and I know BSO, we kind of operationalized that quickly. We went back and then began to do some additional review to tease out some other populations of children. And so you asked the question regarding the 7 years and younger. And so when I had an opportunity to meet with the team, previously Mr. Pryor, Gloria, Brad, and Mr. Dunkel, I went back and specified 2 additional categories to be included in the MOU. We differentiated the handling of 10-year-old youth because that was a standing practice. And so that was incorporated into iteration number 2, as well as the Kaya Roll Act of 2021 was written into or proposed to be part of the second draft. So there is specific language in the in draft 2. It has not been finalized, but that was included in particularly for the 70-year-old and under youth.
And what was there for the 12-year-olds?
The 12-year-old looked very similar to before, right? We just kind of teased out some of the categories of charges, but the process looked primarily the same. The goal, as we talked about it conceptually, was to prevent the ride in the car, to get to the jack, to then be told that, hey, we had alternatives to be considered. So we talked about operationally what that would look like in the department's responsibility or involvement in availing themselves via phone call for the preliminary call. So that was what it related to 12-year-olds. As it related to 10-year-olds, it spoke to if they were met a felony and it was up for security detention, how we would handle those cases. And of course, the 7-year-olds were kind of triaged off. So those are the 3 pieces that were out. I'm looking at it in draft. It is still a very rough draft. So to the point made by, what's his name? City of Fort Lauderdale, it was presented back to me. And so we just need presented back by me with some questions in it. So we just need to probably meet again and finalize that.
So in these meetings, it's you and the state attorney's office?
In the last meeting, it was, yes, me, state attorney, DJJ, the state attorney's office, and 2 representatives from law enforcement. Chiefs Association,
Which agencies?
Fort Lauderdale. And I believe Mr. Dunkel is from Coral Springs.
Who did you have from Fort Lauderdale? Was that Brad?
He represents the Chiefs Association, so I know he also works at Fort Lauderdale as well. So it wasn't agency specific. I think it was the entity of the Chiefs Association. But I wasn't the I didn't extend the invitation. I just accepted my invitation to attend. I will let Gloria though speak to those who were invited.
So Major London, was Weissman speaking on behalf of Fort Lauderdale at that meeting? Or was he speaking on behalf of the Chiefs Association?
It's my understanding that speaking on behalf of the Broward Chiefs Association, as I said, the conversation we just had was the state attorney wanted to make additional changes to the MOU. And once he finalizes the additional changes that he wants, he's going to disseminate it to the agencies and it'll be executed. So we need to get on the same page as to who is responsible for doing the final fine tuning and submitting it back out for execution.
Judge Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to reserve until they share, if they're going to share with us. I'd like to see what's in writing before I have some comments, but it would be nice to see if they would share with this committee. I'd love to see it. So I'll withhold right now.
Does the state attorney's office plan to share, or will you just give it to us when it's all done? Is that where are you all at?
So I just want to make this, I'm going to be clearer than I was earlier. I had made mention that Mr. Weissman was there on behalf of the Chiefs Association, as well as Mr. Dunkel. I understand that Mr. Weissman also works for Fort Lauderdale, but Mr. Dunkel and Mr. Weissman are the ones who work for the Chiefs Association as well and represent them. They were at the table. DJJ was at the table by DJJ's request, because there are procedural matters that are going to have to take place in order to do what Chief Evans just alluded to, which is to try to keep some of these children from being brought to the Jack facility. Myself and Mr. Pryor were there, as well as I believe Chief Falk. In that the most recent email that I received from Mr. Pryor is that based on that meeting that we had, and also at the end of that meeting, Mr. Weissman and Mr. Dunkel were redrafting some of those elements that we had discussed with DJJ. Mr. Pryor, in my most recent email, which I just had an opportunity to review because before I got on to this meeting, I was in another meeting. Mr. Weissman Mr. Pryor has indicated to me that we're going to have another meeting with the same parties, because going through email takes a lot longer. We're going to have another Zoom meeting so that we can hash out the remainder of the language. He has already submitted the MOU to the Chiefs Association. He anticipates hearing back from them, or his request was to hear back from them by next Thursday about what other agencies will sign on or not. We know that BSO has always been signed on. That's not been an issue, and it's not a surprise to the state attorney's office, nor is it an issue or a surprise to the state attorney's office about Fort Lauderdale. The bigger issue has always been getting all the remaining agencies in Broward County to be a part of this, and that's what we're working on. So Mr. Pryor is in communication with the Chiefs Association. We are finalizing the language. To your last question, I anticipate that you will see the final draft, whatever it is that we all accept, my agency, DJJ, and the Chiefs Association. I don't see any reason to send it to you any earlier than that, because this is the state attorney's office MOU. There wouldn't be an MOU if it wasn't for our office. So unless Mr. Pryor tells me otherwise, that would be my opinion. But I will let you know if that changes, or he will send it to you.
There wouldn't be a MOU if this board had not asked for it, because it wasn't being done, Gloria. And so there's no input that is you all, the state attorney's office is not interested in input from anybody except those agencies.
Well, I was here during the prior administration as well, meaning the administration under Mr. Sapp. So I'm well aware that there was not an MOU then. I also know the reasons why. So.
Is the state attorney interested in any input from any of the stakeholders at this table, other than the ones you have?
We've had input from all of you. We've had it. We're now just trying to complete the language so that it procedurally will be the smoothest possible transition to that policy. I will get with Mr. Pryor. If he wants to send you some draft, I mean, it makes no sense because we're not changing the language. We're just adding procedural language that makes it easier for DJJ and law enforcement to have communication with each other when it comes to taking a youth in custody, or whether or not to take a youth in custody, especially a youth that is 12 or under. So I'll let Mr. Pryor know that you're interested in seeing that language, but I don't see the need for it.
Mr. Pryor knows that,
that.
Gloria. Mr. Pryor knows that we're interested from the
Okay, then
time
I'll
that
ask
we asked him
I'll
to
tell
do.
that you remain interested and see whether that's something he sends to you. But right now, we're just we want to get this working with the Chiefs Association. That's where it needs to be done.
Okay.
Otherwise, we're never going to get past this part. And that's where we're at.
Yeah, that's not helpful for this body. That's not helpful, but thank you. So the other pieces that we're in, have we followed up to see? I know that there was the order, administrative order done. So the clerk has that. Is there anything happening with that? Have there been has she received any cases? Have them been referred? Do we know what the process is if she does get a case? Is at the Jackson or Colonel, have you received any children from BSO land who were not that you did not, that they refused to take? How are the stopgaps working? Has there been any follow-up from any of the parties? You're muted, Colonel.
There we go. Yeah, I haven't received any word yet on that. As far as the Jack is concerned, we're working with DJJ just to make sure that they're doing, that the people from BSO are working closely with them. As information comes in, I'll let you know, but I haven't received, me personally, I haven't received anything yet.
Okay. Clerk of the courts, Gordon, anything? Any follow-up?
No, I haven't had any follow-up with the clerk of the courts, but I did have some communication with 3 of the cities and did direct them towards the state attorney's office for participation with the MOU. So I am anticipating that that conversation is still moving forward, and hopefully we'll see additional folks come online as well. That was the city of Fort Lauderdale, city of Pembroke Pines, city of Coconut Creek. Those were particular individuals in those cities. Try to get them to come online.
Okay. And your new chief is due in what day, Major London?
We'll be in place on Monday morning.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, missed opportunities. Where are we? Who has gotten the report on missed opportunities?
Madam Chair, I provided the report. We just received it yesterday for the full month of July.
Okay.
For this group, it's categorized different, so I don't necessarily want to say it's missed opportunities, but it was a look at the first time misdemeanor cases that resulted in delinquency processing or alternatives to arrest. And so we had a total of 17 young people during the month of July who were first-time misdemeanors in our county. Of those 17, there were 8 who were handled through the delinquency process. So they would have met civil citation criteria just based on the delinquency charge, but then went on to be handled through the court process. Of those cases, I did look at each of those cases individually, and 5 of those were domestic violence. So that left 3 of those who were that was rather left in that group. Of those 3, 1 was an out of custody case and there was no history. And while the charge is a battery charge, I was unable to determine if it is a domestic violence charge, and that was the city of Coral Springs. There were 2 additional youth who were processed at the Juvenile Assessment Center, it seems to be a fight versus a domestic violence. And so they're co-defendants. And so what I could see, that was with the city of Coconut Creek, and what I could see in those cases, that the reason the civil citation was not offered was because in addition to the battery charge, there were charges of resisting arrest. So that was, so we only had 8, and then 5 were domestic violence, that left 3, and those were the results of the 3.
So on the one that had more than one charge, you said you think that was the reason why they were not offered a civil citation?
Right, so we had one youth who only had 1 charge. There was a battery charge, but I didn't see the arrest report, so I can't determine if it was domestic violence. That was out of custody. We had 2 that came in, 1 incident with 2 charges. One was the battery, touch, or strike, and the other charge was resisting arrest without violence. And the reason given was that the incident also included resisting the officer. So that was a disqualifying reason given by the officer.
And what department was that?
Coconut Creek. And I provided that. We have a team, as you know, who works on this behind the scenes. The public defender, state attorney, and Office of Justice Civil Citation also received the same data earlier today.
Did the public defender's office have an opportunity to review that?
Yes, good afternoon, Madam Chair. We did have an opportunity to review the missed opportunities report. We were able to pull the police reports as it relates to them. I echo the information provided by Chief Evans. I just don't agree with the fact why law enforcement officers didn't extend civil citation to the 2 young men that were mutual combatants, so to say. They got into a fight at school. I mean, I think that is the essence of what this civil citation program is for. So we're trying to eliminate school arrest. It's 2 kids getting in a fight in school, and then law enforcement officer trying to detain them, and they're still hot with what happened. So this is their reasoning. However, I don't think it's justifiable to not give them the civil citation, but we do have the information.
Okay. I do have a question. I'm not sure who can answer it. So each month we have this report, and each month it are children who have been charged with domestic violence. So what happens? Do they go to a diversion program? Do they get services? What happens to those cases and those children?
Madam Chair, I'll take a crack at it. So basically, those children are typically diverted. If any action is actually warranted, if there's enough probable cause found for that to take place, but they're diverted to then the array of diversion services that are present. If they're brought to the Juvenile Assessment Center for the matter of domestic violence, we offer services right at that juncture by referring the youth over to the Covenant House to begin services immediately in lieu of secure detention placement. Or we can also offer Littman shelter as well if the charge is just that charge and it's a misdemeanor level and no history of supervision.
I think we should know what happens to this number keeps growing. Mm-hmm. I know in other circuits, I've been on the calls and they've done some other things, but they make sure they keep in touch and track these cases. Each month we hear that that they didn't qualify because it's a domestic violence issue, but nobody ever says what happens to them. Do they just have a record? If they don't get diverted, do they get diverted? Are they successful? Are they offered any services? Is there anything that, and I don't know what programs are happening now, now that they may offer the services that one may need for domestic violence. So if we could get those numbers and see what, how that's working out for those families.
Okay, I'll do my best to go back and pull from January 1st of this year, those cases that fell into the category of domestic violence to see what was the path that those cases took.
Is that something, I don't know if you know this or not, Chief Everett, is that something that could be expunged?
I'm going to let the attorney answer. I'm not sure if domestic violence is expungible. I'm not sure if that particular charge is some very specific statute language on that.
Judge, do you have an idea for juveniles? Oh, I see Gordon has his hand up. Mr. Weeks?
You're also mine. So go ahead.
Are we on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, so I want to back up and answer the first initial question, and then I'll address the question regarding, well, as far as expungement, because it's a battery, it still is eligible to be expunged. Oftentimes, then answering the first question, about 50% of the cases are either being no process with a no petition, or some of those children are being offered diversion. You got about 25% of those cases that are still going in court. They're actually making themselves in front of the judge with the attorney supporting the child and seeing his way through litigation. And those are the cases that I've kind of been tracking in my office. So for the last, I would say about 3 months, receiving these reports, we've been watching the missed opportunities to see what really occurs with them, just to see if in fact those children are given the opportunity to go to diversion. We just had a kid that came in last week that was a missed opportunity for a fight that happened at school. He was offered diversion in court. So you do have the opportunity where they're being diverted, but there are about 25% of these cases that are still having to find its way through litigation. And I think that's one of the things that we're trying to fight, to try to have that, to try to avoid that from happening as well.
I would like to respond when I have an opportunity.
Sure. Mr. Weeks, did he say everything you wanted to say?
Yeah, one of the things that raises this question, it's like things overlap every time we start digging a little bit deeper. And one of the overlaps we're finding with these missed opportunities is that promise is not capturing some of these things that we should ordinarily be capturing in promise. I know that, we've modified promise, and there may be certain things that are not eligible for promise. But the original iteration of promise, these things were addressed on a school-based level, and those things that were addressed outside of school were then given an opportunity for civil citation. And then when that net didn't capture, then they were afforded an opportunity for diversion. So what we're finding now is every time we try to plug one gap, the next gap opens up even further. And now we don't have that first level gap of promise for these type of fighting incidents. And now we're seeing that some of them are not even getting the second level of diversion. And now some of them are having to go through the whole process where they have to be before the judge and let the judge make a determination. And that is problematic. And I think that's where we have to go back and drill down and find out what we're really doing here in Broward.
So that would be classified as in that particular case, a school-based arrest, Ms. Evans?
It could be. If it happened on school campus, then definitely it would be a school-based arrest. It then would be misdemeanor. It would fall into a couple of different categories. And if they were siblings, it would be domestic violence, could be, I guess, but I agree with Gordon that when you focus on one part of the system, another part of the system, the weakness will appear. So we certainly have to take that system level approach. But I'm looking at the data now, John, that you spoke to.
Because I think we probably should start looking back at whether it be school-based arrests, if now that school will be back in, if these things are coming out of the school, particularly when it comes to fights. I know that there was a large number of fights that children were arrested for at Coral Springs, for example. And, most of them look like me, and most of them, they just, decided that that was the best course of action for them. So I think we need to track, civil citation, if that is coming out of schools, and diversion if it's coming out of the schools as we go back. Gloria, and then David.
So we're talking about two different things here now. What Mr. Weeks just referred to with promise, we have not had a high percentage of school fights on campuses because we simply haven't had enough students in school to have seen that in the last year. So I'm not sure what cases he's relying upon to make mention of that. Obviously, going forward, that's going to be different now that the school year is starting again. With the report that Chief Evans referred to, if it's the same report, which was the last one I believed I received, I had responded to that report immediately at looking at the idea of these missed opportunities out of those 3 cases. I believe I had an answer for each one of them, at least 2 of the 3, where those youth were diverted by our office. As I have said many, many, many times in these meetings, there's no way these cases are making it directly to court because they have to pass the case filer, and the case filer will divert the case before it goes to court. I take issue with this idea that 25% of these cases are making it to court. I don't know where Mr. James is getting his numbers from. He certainly can call me and we can go through each and every case. What he might be confusing are cases that get filed because they have been kicked back from diversion. If a family rejects diversion and we think that the charge needs to be filed, it will be filed and will go to court. In court, we will give another opportunity to send that case back to diversion. And sometimes it's a miscommunication with the family not understanding the benefits of going to a diversion program and having that explained and encouraged by the judge and potentially by the public defender. Sometimes it's a matter of they did not show up or could not be reached at all from the diversion program when we diverted it. So then we get their information to make sure that now they are accepting it and that we redivert from court. Anytime we have a case that was eligible for diversion, they are more often than not given that opportunity all over again in court. So nobody is trying to keep them in the court system. But I can tell you that with that report that we received, there were actual reasons why they were not given a civil citation, or to the extent that they were not given a civil citation, they were diverted. So I don't know where he got 25% from. He can send me the list and I'd be happy to look every single one of them up, because that's what I do when I get Chief Evans' report. I now look at every case specifically to figure out what happened. So those are not actual just missed opportunities. And to the extent that we need to really understand whether we have a missed opportunity versus just throwing the idea that it's a missed opportunity out there is not a solution.
Thank you, Mr. James.
I would, to Ms. Michelle, I would encourage her to look at the missed opportunity reports like I do, and then keep track of them. And that's how I get my numbers. That's how I receive my information. If you want me to give you, well, I don't want to release the young man's name, but just right now with the report that we're looking from the information that Chief Evans sent out this morning, or excuse me, this afternoon, there are 2 individuals that were arrested for a school-related fight. I don't know how they matriculate through the system yet because the arrest took place on July 26th. Now, what I will do, as I have done, is follow those cases and see what actually occurs. I'm not telling you something or shooting something just to say it. I'm saying they still walk in court. And as I also said, I had a client that walked in court last week, was a missed opportunity as well. And he was offered diversion from court. So it actually occurs, it happens. Our thing is to work together to see if we can corral this issue, to see if that we can get to the bottom line in order to make it all happen. You do have to realize too that in some of these domestic violence cases, there's some kids that may feel as if they were correct in fighting their brother or their sister, and then they want to take that case to trial. So that's also how you get to the percentage of 25%. So it's not where your office has dropped the ball or my office has dropped the ball. It's simply because of the system and how it's designed. People still have the right to say, I elect to go to trial. And that still is something that occurs. I will agree, as I said earlier, your office is extending diversion to those children that have the missed opportunity, or they're not extended civil citation because of the nature of the charge, be it domestic violence.
So let's just start looking into and see what I'm very concerned about the number of children, as we all are, I'm sure, who are being charged with domestic violence, which means they don't get civil citation. And so let's see what's happening with those children. I still say that. Colonel Holmes.
Yes, just to add to that, I'll be brief, Madam Chair. As it relates to domestic violence, what we're requiring our deputies to do is to be more detailed in their reports to make sure that we understand why they were taken into custody and not to just sugarcoat and blanket coat things as domestic violence and take a kid to jail. There are different levels of violence that can take place. And we also need to look at the risk of us, whether we issue a civil citation and let a kid go, the risk of it happening again, repeating itself, the risk of the other victims. Those are tons of things that we have to look at from a law enforcement perspective. But we have definitely informed our deputies to be detailed in writing their reports because we don't want to miss an opportunity to issue a citation if it's a shoving match between kids. And we're fully aware of there's situations where there may be educators that may just want to get rid of a kid that's in a school that's been a pain in the butt and because he got into a verbal argument or a shoving match with the kid. Have a school resource deputy come and take them to jail. No, that's not what we want. You know, if it's violent, if it's a situation where there's a high risk of injury or assault to someone, then yes, that's totally different. But we've definitely been on our deputies about you know, investigating further than the surface itself. And you know, for the public defender and the state's attorney's office as well, if there's any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to our deputies to find out in detail as to what occurred, and if there's something missing, to follow up with that too.
And are you all still doing the audits, David, of those cases to see, you know, what really happened in those?
Yes. We have supervisors that follow up, and it goes up the chain of command. You know, for the BSO chain of command, if it's something that needs to be addressed, if it's an issue that stands out and we have repeat offenders, we take action.
Thank you.
Yep.
Mr. Major London, are you, and I know you have a new chief that's coming, so are you all prepared to do the same thing should you, with your cases of domestic violence, should that occur with your department?
Yes.
Okay. And do you need to, you say yes, and then I have to ask you again on a Monday?
You know.
And Larry gets there. All right, just checking. Chief Evans, your hand is up.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple things I want to just include in the conversation. I did have a chance to pull the data, and I agree, and this is historical, that domestic violence is one of those special populations that we should take a definite interest in, because it's, I don't want to say it's a gateway charge, but it is a charge that reveals a lot more than misbehaviors in family. It speaks more to family dynamics and historic problems. And I've often seen that domestic violence charges are, when I do complex case reviews, they were some of the very first charges where we did unpackage the needs of the families that resulted in deep system involvement. So I certainly think this is certainly a population worthy of look. But I did go back using the same report for the data I sent earlier to my team that works on this, from January 1st of this year to September, I'm sorry, we're not even there yet, July 31st of this year. For the first time, misdemeanors cases resulting in delinquency, there were a total of 79 youth. Of those 79 youth, 55 of those are for domestic violence. So we're talking about, you know, the majority, the lion's share, as they would say, of those cases. And so what I will do is send that list out to both the state attorney and the public defender's office, so they'll have the same working list to look from, and then we'll be able to use that as just a starting point for the discussion. And I did want to also add, you asked about school arrest. I also have received that report, and I'll also send that to Dr. Hickman and those at the school board, as I receive that just about monthly. I send that to them, even though promise is a little because of the school system, you know, their promises, we're not in person, but I've been sending that as well. So.
Okay, and and Dr. Wanza, are you getting those from Dr. Hickman?
I pushed the wrong button trying to come off the mute. Yeah, so we, Dr. Hickman and I, we have a group like every Wednesday where we discuss these kinds of issues. So yes, this team is very good about sharing. And then we loop in the principal supervisors in my staff meeting.
Okay. Gloria, your hand is up.
I just want to add that I would be remiss if I didn't also express to the panel that we use great discretion when we do get domestic violence cases that come directly to us, obviously through arrest or not in custody or otherwise, in determining whether it's an actual charge we're going to file. We don't just file because there's a battery upon a person in a household. I train my staff to practice the way that I have always practiced. I've been through the domestic violence unit in this office on 2 tours of duty. I'm very familiar with the the uniqueness of that charge and what it means to a family and what it can mean to a community potentially, and particularly as it applies to youth in the community. So if we have victims in that family who don't want to further prosecution for a lot of different reasons for their youth, but we have concerns about what the dynamic of the family is, we are always following up to make sure that they have resources available to them, whether or not they're already in some kind of a program for their child or seeking services. And ultimately, even if we're declining that charge, which you all don't see the declines, so you really only see the cases that we're actually filing. You don't see the number of cases that we have declined. But even with a decline, we don't just decline a charge because we think we can't prove it. We decline it for many different reasons. And we take the responsibility of not only declining the charge, but before we decline it or at the time that we're declining it, we're making sure that that family is being taken care of in some way. So I don't take for granted at all what's happening in a household and how they're affected by the criminal justice system and why a parent would not want to be involved in the criminal justice system with their personal problems or issues or challenges. So I just want to make sure that everybody's aware that I see more domestic violence cases than Mr. James is actually seeing because of the fact that we also have a decline rate on those cases for all different kinds of reasons. But our number one goal is always to make sure that that family is in a safe position to keep going forward. And we do even get them repeated to us. And second and third declines have happened based on communication with parents and youth and what have you. And always we're following up. That's an important part. I don't take it lightly because, like I said, I've been around those types of cases for many, many, many years.
Thank you. I would still like to see the report. I really need to know what's going on with these families. I want to, saying is one thing. I want to see what action was put behind that because we've got too many kids falling through the cracks. And each month the report comes is the exact same thing. We don't know what happened to all the ones before. So we can start with the 79 that that Chief Evans spoke of. State Public Defender's Office, somebody's got their hand up.
Yes, Madam Chair. I wanted to circle back to this missed opportunities report. Part of the civil citation program, part of missed opportunities is to ensure that the state attorney has a process to capture those children that have slipped through and they missed the opportunity. I just circle back on the clerk's office website to check to see if those 2 children have case numbers. Those 2 children have case numbers. They are visible on the clerk computer. I don't have access to see if they have a court date, but they in fact have case numbers. So I think this is an opportunity for us to inquire of the state as to their process to capture and where do these 2 children stand with respect to whether they're going to get an opportunity for the civil citation. And that will show us whether this process is in fact working to capture those folks, have the delay with the clerk, and then issue the civil citation.
Okay, so what is the process from the state attorney's office? Let's just say if those cases were at Ms. Foreman's office, and she was holding them, and so she has the cases, they qualify. What she calls the state attorney's office and said, I have these kids that are probably missed opportunities. What is the process over at the state attorney's office?
It would be that we would review them and issue a civil citation directly from our office, but I haven't seen those cases yet. We are working to prepare the actual citation itself, because obviously we normally relied upon BSO issuing civil citations, but to the extent that now hopefully all law enforcement agencies are going to be practicing civil citation, and then when they don't and it makes it to the clerk's office, we're going to have to issue it ourselves. We can't rely upon BSO to issue for other agencies. So we are already working on that, but I haven't.
So who does that, Gloria, from your office?
I think we haven't finalized that. I think it's going to have to come from either myself, probably is going to be me, because I don't see it going, it's going to come directly to my division, not to Dennis Alsbury out at the Jack, I think. So it will be myself or possibly Dennis Alsbury, depending on how procedurally it tracks through the office. But to Mr. Weeks's, if Gordon is discussing two cases that I think he is, I'm not sure, because we would have to actually speak to each other directly and get the actual names of the youth. Those two cases were diversion cases that were kicked back because diversion was unsuccessfully completed, and then we filed them. That's why they have case numbers. I believe those are the two cases that I alluded to earlier and had responded to Chief Evans' email about when she sent out the missed opportunity report, because yes, Mr. James, I have been tracking them as well and plan to continue to do so going forward. But we would have to discuss, I would have to actually discuss those youth directly with the public defenders to see if it's something that I'm missing.
Mr. James brought it to my attention. These were two youth that were arrested on July the 26th. And he'll reach out with the case numbers with you to ensure that the actual process that we all agreed upon is taking place, that they're captured by the clerk, you review them, and if in fact they qualify, your office will be issuing it. So we'll circle back to make sure that these children went through the process appropriately.
Okay, that'll make it easier. Thank you.
We're going to ask that you all, the two officers, please get on the same page. That is not where we are now. And so we're asking that you all, if there's any way possible, to get on the same page with these cases, please. Judge Holmes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just have two questions, because we keep saying captured by the clerk, and I'm a little concerned with that. Does the clerk's office know, what they're looking for? I mean, or you just have you just asked them to if it's a misdemeanor, hold it to the side until my office can review it, because I don't think they have the personnel in that office other than their general counsel, and I don't think she's going to be looking at that. So when you say captured by the clerk, have you all, asked her to, if it's a misdemeanor arrest and it's a juvenile, just hold it until someone in your office can get to it? Can someone tell me how that's working? And then my second question is, we talked in subcommittee because we had this problem coming up about Jack issuing civil citations, that it had to be a certified law enforcement officer. So Ms. Mashali, with you issuing a civil citation, do you have to be cross-designated? I don't want something later on in a loophole to come back and say, well, these children weren't eligible because Ms. Mashali is not a certified law enforcement officer. So, and I the statute just says law enforcement. So can you all answer those two questions on behalf of the NAACP?
Gloria?
Okay, so the MOU with the clerk's office should address exactly, Judge Holmes, what you're referring to, which is that they are supposed to be submitting cases to us that, and I don't have it in front of me, my apologies. I believe the way it read was all misdemeanor offenses, if I'm not mistaken. Again, we haven't.
It refers to misdemeanor referrals.
Right.
And so I'm saying, are you leaving that up to somebody that drove by a law school or somebody that knows what a an arrest for a misdemeanor is? I know the people that work in the clerk's office, so that's why I'm trying to find out. That's an understanding between your office and the clerk's office. I understand that, but I'm just saying,
Maybe that's why you haven't gotten any.
Well, it's a very good question, and I will definitely follow up on that because that is a very good question. I think the last time, again, the last time that Mr. Pryor addressed that MOU with the board here, I was not at that meeting, and that might have been when Mr. Marshall stood in, and I've done a lot of meetings in between regarding civil citation and otherwise. Let me please get back to that, and even to the extent that I need to be aware of it and figure that out even before I get back with you, Judge Holmes, to make sure that that is something that is being covered by the clerk's office or training or what have you, because they're going to have to tell us how they're identifying those. I appreciate your question. And
I tried to broach that, but I was informed that it was between the duly elected state attorney.
He did
so I shut up but I'm concerned.
Yes.
Things are going to, if you're leaving it up to that office to discern, you might want to give them a list of things to look for or something. That's just my suggestion so that we don't have these long discussions on missed opportunities.
I appreciate that suggestion, and it will be my obligation to definitely follow up on that, because you're right. It's not going to work for any of our agencies if if they don't actually understand how to identify them and make sure I'm seeing those referrals. That goes back to Mr. Weeks's concerns earlier. So that is something I will definitely be doing tomorrow, I can assure you.
And what about the second question?
Yeah.
The second question was, again, I'm sorry.
The statute says that it has to be a law enforcement officer to offer civil citation.
I believe that we would come under that purview, and I'm only going to say that because my analogy would be that we have actually at satellite offices written actual traffic citations. I know that we're able to issue those as an arm of law enforcement, and I don't anticipate any legal issue with that. And certainly I could follow up with Joel Silvershine in our office or our appellate division, and I don't think Mr. Pryor anticipates an issue with that ability as well. So I didn't question it.
Well, that's different because, and I did satellite court as a county court judge. That's a charging decision. That's why it will pass muster, because your office is the office that brings charges.
Mm-hmm.
And so therefore, if an officer writes a citation and the citation is incorrect, your office can reissue or charge a person.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're the charging arm. I'm concerned because civil citation is not a charge. It's a pre-arrest.
But it is a program, and to the extent that we have diversion, I think it should fall under sort of the same umbrella. Again, if we get challenged with that, then I guess we'll have to circle back to the individual.
Well, I'm not going to challenge you. I'm not going to challenge you.
No, please don't.
Let me ask you, Gloria.
I don't even think Madam Chair would want you to do that on behalf of anybody, Judge.
Let me ask you, Gloria.
Because that inures to the benefit of the child. But, what if the governor's office starts looking into this kind of thing and then say you don't have the authority to issue a civil citation? So that's why I always think prospectively and try to dot I's and cross T's before it happens.
Yes.
So, that's just my thought. But maybe Judge Rabolo, he's a much brighter guy. He went to Rutgers, so he may know more than me.
Yeah, hang on one second. Let me ask you this real quick, Gloria. You have certified law enforcement officers in your office.
Yes.
Could they, because I know, and I'm just going to use the example only because we did the civil citation with Fort Lauderdale. If there you have folk in their office that could actually do that. It's just be a matter of putting something in place, a process in place in order to do that.
Well, that would be,
to me, that would be using your own, and I believe they're all certified that can do that piece of it. It's just got to figure out how to get it out of foreman's office.
I mean, that could be an option if necessary. I still think that it would be similar to the idea that we have the ability under the statute to have diversion programs, but maybe as Judge Holmes said, Judge Rabolo may actually have he's worked both sides of the fence, both in our office and obviously in court. So perhaps he has some
Judge?
that would be helpful.
You're absolutely correct, Madam Chair. The State Attorney's Office has 20 to 30 investigators. They're all certified law enforcement. I don't see any reason why they couldn't be signing off on these citations.
Thank you. So it's just a matter of you all putting a process in place, starting over at Foreman's office. I would bet you that they're just running, doing what they usually do. If I had to guess, I think it'll be a matter of you all putting the process in place. And that I would bet that that's why you haven't received any.
Well, I will definitely follow that up. And again, even if it was a missed civil citation, and I understand that we are trying to get to just civil citation, I fully appreciate that. It should certainly still be an opportunity for diversion. None of that should have been missed, but I appreciate what you're saying, and I will definitely be following that up tomorrow.
Okay. Gordon, did you have your hand up, or somebody in the Ella or James? Okay. We are, if anybody seen national news, Broward County is front and center. And so, as last year, this year, as part of the whole COVID-19 pieces, we had to write policy as it pertained to children wearing masks in school. And so I don't know, and I don't envy you, Dr. Wanza, or your staff on how you're going to, because there are a few opt-eds, IEP, medical thing. How do you then deal with that? Because does the school leader say, little Roosevelt, put your mask on, and little Gordon does not have his mask on, and does he say I opted out? What do you do with that?
So our policy has always given parents of students with IEPs, 504s, that for medical, psychological, whatever reasons, it has always given those parents the ability to, bring in a doctor's note, and we keep on file for those students. I'm going to tell you that was rarely done because, at the beginning of the pandemic, everybody just regardless, we all mess up. What I will say, and I don't say this in jest, but I'm looking at Colonel Holmes, I'm looking at Mr. London from Fort Lauderdale. When we call y'all Wednesday, you better come, because I'm going to tell you, listen, there are parents who are going to walk in and say, I don't give my child is not wearing a mask, and I'm not filling out a piece of paper, and I'm not. And I'll be honest, I'm not as worried on the middle and high school campuses that have a school resource officer. They have more security personnel. At the elementary level, it's going to be a problem because there's a campus monitor, and at most of the elementary schools, an armed guardian who is not a law enforcement officer. But, we're going to provide principals with some guidance on Monday. But for the most part, the policy is the policy. You have to wear a face covering unless, you've gone through what is our policy guideline. The governor is insistent that the note should not have to come from a medical anybody. It's the parent should come in and say, here, my child's not wearing one, and that's good. That's not what our policy says. And our board has given us direction to follow the policy that the board has approved, and the showdown will be, so you're not going to allow kids in school. So we know that in the emergency rules that were passed, one of the things is that, if parents feel like they're being bullied or discriminated against because of the COVID protocols, they can now apply for or have access to the Hope Scholarship to attend a private school, whether those schools have a mask mandate or not. But Wednesday morning, we are expected to enforce the policy as the board has approved.
So, David, Victor, what are your people gonna do? Do you say something about the mask? Do you let somebody else say something about the mask? If you don't, who knows what you're supposed to have?
I'll go ahead and share that our instructions to our officers is going to be that we are not policy enforcers. If there is a charge, i.e. disrupting a police school function or trespassing that the school wants to leverage, we'll be there for that, but we're not going to be enforcing masks.
David?
I apologize, just writing notes. I'm gonna get with our legal department prior to Wednesday to see what we are allowed to do legally. Because I understand, the school board has their policy, but parents should not be able to come and disrupt the school function, period. And I'll make sure that our deputies adhere to that and make sure that they don't break that law. Period. So, but I will make sure that our guys are educated prior to Wednesday, so there's no misunderstandings, and that all our principals will have direct numbers to the district captains if there's any questions, any issues, any concerns. But it's important for all of us to be on the same board.
True. Okay, Mr. Obell. Who's on the phone?
Dr. Wanza, I got a question. Maybe I misheard you. You say they're providing scholarships?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Vouchers, brother.
Vouchers. Oh,
Hope
yes.
scholarship.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, I did.
What she's saying is they can then say I feel bullied because I'm not wearing the mask, so they can take their voucher, AKA Hope Scholarship, and move to a charter school. Or they could say, I am wearing the mask and I feel bullied, so I could take my Hope Scholarship / voucher and go to the charter.
Well, no, it's to a private school.
Wait.
Private.
Are these taxpayers' money?
Yes,
that's correct.
Oh, yes, it is.
So why is our taxpayer money going towards a private school?
So they have that now, where if you're being bullied, you can take your money. You can take your McKay Scholarship money. They have now added COVID-related bullying to the list, so that you can take your voucher to, as President Ellison said, take your voucher, and you don't have to prove that you're being bullied.
Right.
It's self-assertion. And go to, whatever private school, or you can even cross the county line and go. And I think that we have to give you something toward transportation if you're going to take it and go to another public school that does not. Oh, yeah.
So if we're doing all this, then I gotta say, man, we got some issues going on in our school district, predominantly the Black community, the Black schools. We got a significant amount of challenges, and there was never been vouchers. There's never been anything, and we're sitting up here.
Elections have consequences, sir.
Mm-hmm.
Chief Evans, is your hand still up from before? Okay. Elections have consequences, and he said he's not done yet. Done fighting the Broward school board members, superintendents, and all of us yet.
Officially sent them their letter that if they don't do something to come into compliance, that he will withhold the funding equivalent to their salary of the board members and the superintendent.
Dr. Cartwright just got here. She was probably like, man.
I told her, welcome. We are Broward.
She's probably like, I need my papers.
Madam Chair, if I can ask a question of the school board representative.
She's got 2 minutes, so please, she's got another meeting. She's got to pop on, so go ahead.
One of my concerns is that, children oftentimes take cues from their parents. And when they get to school and their parents have instructed them that they do not have to follow your mandate, are you going to take a approach of just expelling the child, sending the child home, or taking other punitive measures, ultimately, maybe even having to call law enforcement to assist? And we know how that thing escalates really quickly. And then we have a child getting arrested because they mama told them they didn't have to wear a mask in school.
So we're going to work through right now. This will be our first time doing this. So we're seeing a lot of theoreticals until we get into the moment, but work through our what would be our normal discipline matrix. So in this response, you ask a child, they say no. So just like we would do a dress code violation, right? So put them in IS, but then you got to figure out, you're gonna throw 20 of them in IS without a mask on, you know what I'm saying? So So then it becomes, we're gonna have to call parents, you know, we're gonna need you to come pick up your child. But if a child becomes belligerent, you know, physically aggressive, all of that kind of stuff, then we're gonna have to respond.
And the teachers have said that they are not trying to be in IS with kids who won't wear a mask, and yeah, so that's not happening. Okay. Okay. COVID in the detention center. What are the numbers, Ms. Evans?
Madam Chair, I don't have any specific numbers because we're not required to report them any longer.
Alrighty.
But what I
I
can
heard
tell-
y'all had an outbreak. I heard it was a lockdown out there. So tell me what's what.
What I can tell you is that they are under quarantine, and their in quarantine date is now set to be August 21st, 2021. That's what I can report.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Quarantine ends on August 21st, 21.
And why would they need to go on quarantine, Chief Evans?
Well, Madam Chair, according to the CDC, it is highly suggested that when you have a positive test, or those who have been exposed, that the facility is then, or that you go into a quarantine posture. But I don't have specific numbers as it relates to youth and or staff. When the governor's executive order expired, the department's reporting responsibilities expired along with that. And I believe that was back in June, May, June.
Mr. Weeks, see your hand.
Well, I was just, we were shocked because we were looking at the updates from the Department of Juvenile Justice, and we didn't see any updates since June. However, we are advised when the detention center goes on a quarantine. We do know that currently there was about 2 weeks ago, up until today, about three additional kids have tested positive, and 2 staff members have tested positive inside of the facility. But now that makes sense as to why we don't have those updated numbers. Thank you, Chief Evans. I was wondering.
So, Chief Evans, so if my child is in the detention center and I want to have him receive the vaccination, he's not tested positive, but we know it's in there. So is that possible to have children that are currently being housed at the detention center vaccinated?
That I'm not sure.
Parental permission. What would it? Any idea what would it take to make that happen?
Considering the authority of evaluation and treatment process, the fact that you have an external agency coming in to provide the vaccination, that could be where the challenge is. But I can't speak to any of the facility operations or medical services. Unfortunately, that's beyond my scope. But I can ask the question.
Okay, if you'd be so kind, since he's forever in witness protection. Okay.
Will do.
Okay, so that means that when school starts, the teachers will not be allowed in until after the 21st?
That is my understanding on the relationship we have with the school board of Broward County. But is David on? I believe he can speak to that. When they're in quarantine, then they're in quarantine, then they are when we're in quarantine, they're in virtual.
So we don't know when the teachers will return?
If my theory holds true, then they will return when quarantine ends that should be then the 22nd.
Madam Chair, we have some additional advisement.
Sure.
Yeah, so with my conversation with the superintendent, he's advised me that when the detention center goes on a quarantine, essentially what they're doing is limiting the accessibility of the facility to parents and volunteers. So he still ensures that the educational component of the facility is still operational. He still ensures that anyone with a court order and doctors still have access to the facility. You're not closing the doors on those individuals. In fact, I know because we sent some investigators with a court order over there yesterday to obtain some information from one of our clients that's there. So the quarantine status only shuts down the facility for people that comes in and volunteer, and also parents. It still allows for teachers to come in and doctors.
You look confused, Chief Evans.
in a separate conversation, with the school board as they expressed their concern, and this was, I think I'm going back to April, where there's teachers expressed concern with when this facility was in quarantine posture, what risk it was to them. And again, and I hate that David is not on, but if my recollection serves true, while they may still be able to come to the facility, it was my understanding that they were, they in turn were virtual as well, is what my recollection may be, but I'll have to ask specifically on that. I have to go back and look at my notes for that. But thank you for that, Mr. James.
Being that school starts Monday, that's pretty darn important because they need to, they're supposed to be on the same schedule, are they not?
The school is year round in the detention center.
No, they weren't doing last month. They were not doing, according to what we were told, they weren't doing the school because I had asked, can the students get participate in summer school of some type? They were just doing
They
some other
wanted two. They have a calendar year that looks a little bit different. I don't have it in front of me.
They were not, last month they were not doing anything. So I will check with Mr. Watkins and see where they are.
Okay.
Mr. Colonel Holmes.
Yes, the update. With
I heard y'all had a little problem down there too.
We've been pretty fortunate in the entire system. As of yesterday, August 10th, we have 14 inmates that have tested positive totally. As far as juveniles, I know last month we had 7 juveniles. We've increased that by 2, but there's still no positive cases. They're up at the Paul Ryan Center. Summer classes were conducted via Zoom by the school board, and they were expected to be in person again next week. But because of the rise of the COVID cases, we canceled that, and they're still going to remain via Zoom. But we've been very, very fortunate, knock on wood, that we've had no positive cases as far as the juveniles at the Paul that are housed at the Paul Ryan Center. So hopefully we can keep it that way. But overall, we've gone up a little as far as inmates. Actually, to be honest with you, it's gone up and down as far as the inmates in all of our facilities. It was much higher a week ago, but it's dropped down to 14. So hopefully it continue to go in the right direction.
Okay. And so if you had juvenile in your custody who wants to, or whose family wants, or they want for a child, for him or her to be vaccinated, is that possible within your facility?
Yes. As the sheriff has stated in the past, we have access to the vaccinations, and we've given them to our inmates. Throughout the facility, throughout all our facilities, we made it available. We have tons of vaccinations available. If a family member does have a juvenile and, they've I guess legally, if they can sign for them, yes, we can provide it.
Mr. Weeks, did you hear that?
Yes, we did.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, we can confirm that they are in fact offering the vaccine in the jail. We have a number of folks that have availed themselves to it. We've also learned that they've, I don't want to spoil it, Colonel Holmes, but I'm gonna put it out there, that you guys are doing rapid testing in the jail as of
awesome.
Shortly. So that is a good move. The more testing, the more vaccine, the better it is for that population. I wish DJJ would try to take some cues from the DSO with respect to rapid testing and make an availability of the vaccine for those children that are qualified.
Okay, thank you. And Tamika, Ms. Starbuck, you sent us the civil citation report.
Yes, you should have the civil citation report.
Can you do a quick review?
Okay, so for the month of July, there were 15 new referrals for juvenile civil citation, and 12 youth were discharged from the program. 11 whom were successful.
Okay. Can you tell if any of those came from the schools, or is that something you're going to work on for us? please?
I can work on that.
Okay, thank you. All right. Any announcement? Gordon, I know you've been like a little bit busy. Anything on the jail, the new detention center?
I apologize. We do need to convene a detention center group meeting, and I will ask that be done shortly. Yes, I apologize. That did slip through the cracks. We were having a little issue over in the jail this last week that we've been trying to address.
Okay. All right. Are there any announcements? Anything coming up that we need to know about? Any concerns? And welcome, Judge Rabola. Okay, I see your hand up. What you got? I'm here. You're muted. Okay.
Madam Chair, I don't know if you've been made aware of, it hasn't been made public yet. I don't know if anyone on here is made aware, but Judge Elijah Williams is going to be the chairperson of the Juvenile Division effective September 1.
The Juvenile Division?
Yes.
Oh.
If you weren't made aware of it,
I was not.
well, now you know. It's not official yet, though.
Okay. All right. Good to know. Thank you. Anything else?
Can I just ask Judge Rabola, will he be joining in addition to you, or?
What do you mean in addition?
Will we have both of you here?
No, I'm taking his place.
Okay.
He actually withdrew from this committee, asked to withdraw from the committee because of the fact that he's going to be the delinquency chairperson judge.
Okay.
Sorry, Mr. Weeks.
All right.
No, don't take no offense. I'm happy to have you. I just thought we were going to get more. The more judges, the better. We have Judge Holmes, we have you, we have Judge Williams. The more judicial insight, the better.
Now, I speak for the NAACP, not the judiciary. I'm not with them anymore.
Right.
I always consider Judge Holmes part of the judiciary. She is retired, though. She is retired.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay. Anything else? Hearing none, seeing none. Thank you all. I'll see you next month. Take care. Stay safe. Bye.